The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Our guest today is Vera Williams, the author and illustrator of award-winning children's picture books. She'll be joined on the set by Pat Armstrong, the Twin Cities Program Director for MELD, Minnesota Early Learning Design, a parent education organization. We'll be talking about Ms. Williams' books and ways that parents and other adults can help children learn to love reading and books. Thera B Williams and Pat Armstrong, it's a pleasure to have you here on All About Kids today. Vera, you said when you're in school classrooms that children like to introduce you as Vera B, so thought we should start off that. You are one of the most exuberant authors and illustrators, I think, in current children's publishing. The colors in your books are rich, they're lavish, and all of your characters have such, well, a positive, cheerful attitude, and it's not a forced sort of thing. You're in Minnesota in the fall of 1994 to talk to a group of young women who are in a Minnesota Early Learning Design, MELD, parenting group. And so we're going to be talking about your books today, and we'll also be talking with Pat from MELD about some of the goals of MELD, which encourage reading in families. But let's start off with one of your books, Cherries and Cherry Pits. The main character, Bedemi, is a young girl who absolutely loves to draw. And when I was rereading this book earlier this weekend, I wanted to run out and buy a pack of brightly colored
like on the cover.
Pens, right?
Yeah,
like
see out there they all are.
Yeah. And you said that this character is a composite of you when you were growing up, loving to draw and wanting to make stories.
Yeah, and to talk. Yeah, she is a person in that way. She's very much like myself. She's very much like many children, but my enthusiasm for her, and she was an actual person. I got her name from an actual child, but I had an immediate sympathy for that child. Sympathetic vibration with that child, because she just was one of these people who was overflowing with things to tell, and when she couldn't tell them fast enough, or when she couldn't tell them vividly enough, she would draw them, and when she couldn't draw them fast enough, she would tell them. And telling and picturing are very close, and I do both those things.
Well, that's one of the things I think that's very clear in your books. Bedemi starts every story with "this is," and she talks about her brother, she talks about her family. Your book, Scooter, which was published in 1993 and was on the American Library Association's Best Book for Children list, as well as the winner of the Boston Globe Hornbook Award, is a book for older children. But again, you have this strong character, Elena Rose Rosen, character extraordinaire. And Elena talks, and she writes, and she draws, and she
rides a scooter like
she
that.
Rides a
and she has
scooter,
opinions.
Very strong
about
opinions.
Many things.
And she gathers all the children in the neighborhood together to put on a gala sports festival to help one of the little kids who doesn't talk. Now, the flap of the book says this isn't autobiographical, but there certainly must be components of Vera B. Williams, character extraordinaire, in this book.
Yeah, well, I haven't done any books that don't have autobiographical components, but they're very transformed in books. They're not straight on at all, and mysteriously transformed. For instance, in the series A Chair for My Mother, the family is a mother, a daughter, and a grandmother, and the mother is a waitress. Well, I actually mostly lived with two parents throughout my life. I barely knew my grandparents, and though I've been a waitress, my mother was not, except in the sense that all women have been, Like when I talk to groups of librarians, I said, I always say, how many people here have been waitresses? And almost everybody raised their hand. And then for those who haven't been waitresses, I say, how many people have been waitresses at home? And many people raise their hands, right? And yet, the book is dedicated to my mother. It's the story of, it came out in about 1983, I think, and it won a Caldecott for the illustration, which just was a wonderful thing for me, very exciting. And I feel it's a wonderful thing for the people in the book, too, because it is the story of a person of a kind that rarely gets in a book, which is a waitress, her mother and daughter, people who have a big struggle to get enough money. It's not a sad book. It has a fire in it. I don't think it's Pollyanna-ish about life, but it is more about how these people strive together to save up money in a big mayonnaise jar and replace their furniture, get a chair for the mother. And that was came from a sense of the way in which my mother worked so hard for our family and needed a chair, so to speak.
Well, I think that's the thing that comes across in all of your books. It's the family working together. And even though the family is poor, there is this sense that working together they can accomplish something. And I think, again, your illustrations show exactly what's happening in the scene where the family is looking through the windows at the desolation of the home after the fire. You've used such dark and depressing colors, but yet at the end, after that mayonnaise jar is full, here is this gorgeous cabbage rose chair just bursting with color and life. And this is a theme that takes you through all three books in the series.
You want to know something interesting about the chair? I didn't realize this when I made the chair, but children in a school sometime later told me, they said, did you know the chair was a heart? And I was quite confused. But they said, yeah, turn it. And if you turn it so that, this is the point.
Yes.
It is a heart. And they discovered it for themselves around Valentine's Day. And I loved it because the book is about heart in a way. And the chair in this book is a major character. In these three books, this is a trilogy in which a development takes place in which, in the first book, the child's deepest desire, and I think it's one reason the book is so popular, which it is to give the mother a gift. And I think that's a deep longing in children, even children whose parents aren't what we would think of as very nice to them. But the desire to make your mother happy, to make her less tired, to make her less worried about money, is so deep. And I think
the chair
stands for
security.
that. Yes.
Well, Pat, when MELD was working with PEN, which is a group of authors who are interested in promoting family literacy and who think that it's really important for people to meet real life authors, is that one of the reasons that you were interested in Vera Williams, because of her strong sense of family and the fact that you don't have to have a lot of money to be a happy family?
Right. I think the sense of family is definitely one of the reasons that we were hoping she could visit us. And also I think as we are encouraging reading with new parents, young parents and their children, we feel that books that are so inviting as yours, with the illustrations that you've given to your stories, even make you want to curl up in a big chair like the one you drew and read with your child. And I think the pictures themselves, the illustrations, the color, the pictures of families in your book just make you want to read them. So that was a piece of it too. And also that the stories are good family stories, stories we can learn from, stories that may fit for some of the families in our program.
Yes, because if I could put this in, we keep saying the word family. Now, in some parts of our society, family is a very strictly defined unit, and I don't do that. These are three female characters who make up a family, and in Scooter, it's just the mother and daughter in a one-room apartment with
But then they have
the beds
friends.
separate.
The friends. Are
Yeah,
part of the
they're not
family, too.
isolated. The people downstairs have people upstairs. The people downstairs in chair for my mother have Uncle Sandy. I can't ever remember Aunt whatever her name is, even though I know her so well. Aunt Ida, thank you, are upstairs, and they help. And I do that I think I do that for a real reason. I have to say that the books are made of elements whose reasons I know not. No matter how much you talk about stories and pictures, they are mysterious. Art is mysterious. Creation is mysterious. So that's one element, comes from mysterious parts of my life. Sometimes I recognize it, but I don't exactly know why they came up at certain times or in certain books. So I'm very interested in. That's one reason I like to do this. It helps me explore what I did. And
Well, it's sort of like Elena Rose. In
yes,
Scooter.
she's always she wants to know how.
Her writing.
But there are also elements in them that come out of very conscious choices. I've been a person very active in trying to change the world around me. And one of the ways I do it is in books. And I have wanted to show that life among struggling people struggling to make a living, is very full of neighborliness and family. In fact, I think one thing people don't understand is that if it weren't, everything would fall apart. If you have a new car that you can depend on and something goes wrong with it, you call up your mechanic and he hurries over with another car for you to use, right? And yours goes off to be fixed, right? If you have a half-functioning car, I'm not even talking about no car, but if you live in a place where you have to have one and it half functions and it's always broken, you have to get your brother-in-laws or your sisters or your nephews or the upstairs neighbors, right? You have to get someone to mind your littlest kid while you take your next kid to the clinic. You always are. You have to get somebody to lend you money till the next check. I remember my Aunt Gussie and her my cousin Eugene. My Aunt Gussie was had been disabled by scarlet fever. She had had a husband but no longer had one when we were closest to her. And my mother was always, who also had trouble getting from one end of the month to the other, but she was always having to find a way for Eugene and Gussie to have food between the third week and the last week in the month. Okay?
Well, and that comes out in all your characters in Scooter. There's a family where the little boy doesn't talk at all, and it's actually through an elderly child care provider, just sort of the neighborhood grandma who shares and gives unstintingly. It's a real sense of community. The cab driver in here, when Elena Rose
Yes.
cuts herself and her mother has to race her to the emergency room because they don't have a car. He doesn't charge, and he shows her how to get in there. And there is just that sense of neighborliness that
but
you
I
talked
don't
about.
think it's far-fetched.
No, it doesn't come across as didactic, and it doesn't come across as saccharine sweet. It comes across as real people.
Well, and that's what I was going to add to our list of reasons why we chose Vera to come to visit our MELD program as well, is that here are people that our families can relate to. Their lives are very much the same for many of our participants, and it hasn't been too recently that there were stories with families like
I think it's very important now, too, because this sense of dysfunctionalness, this word, dysfunctional, believe me, if these people weren't so functional, they couldn't manage at all. They're quite functional, a lot of people.
More
it's
so
just
than others.
that the odds are so hard, that you have to function in such difficult circumstances. And the kind of functioning is different. It's adapted to the... Sometimes it's not so well adapted, but often it is quite well adapted to the situation, like the many grandmothers who bring up their daughters' children, which is taken as a sign of dysfunctionalism. I think it's a very well-functioning way of doing it if these people could have a little more help with the costs of doing it. But that is the kind of thing I wanted to honor. I really wanted to honor it. It moves me. You know, just even talking about it now, it brings tears to me. I don't exactly know why. It moves me deeply, the net of helping.
Strong women and intergenerational, which comes across, I think, even in Share for My Mother, the grandmother doesn't have a job, but when she gets a bargain at the market, those savings go into the big glass jar. Now, in the second book of the trilogy, Something Special for Me, this is where Rosie is saving up for something, and you get a sense of, here is a child who knows that this money, this jar full of money, is going to be hers, and what can she possibly choose that would be wonderful enough? And she chooses
an accordion.
Oh,
my children, my grown children, they just said an accordion. And all I could think of was Lawrence Welk, but about whom I, by the way, have no opinion. But I love the accordion. I love to dance, and I've always loved all kinds of ethnic music, and have been a member of the Ethnic Music Society. And I don't play music myself, but I have been just enthusiastic about that music.
I thought of it as it's a gift not only for Rosie, but it's a gift for her family and for her friends, and of course
it had another reason, if I may put it in. It's interesting to talk about this, because from this you can see all the places stories come out of, I think, in a way. I said some of them, you know, about my attitudes toward families, the desire to honor my mother. It also, these three stories, which were not written at the same time. This one was written, and then, as I said, won the prize, which pleased me a great deal. And then I wrote these two together, Something Special for Me and Music for Everyone. They parallel my development in my profession, which I started late in life. I was 47 when I did my first book. And in this book, Rosa is somewhat mute. She is the giver of a gift, but if you had to discuss her character, you would only say generous. You know, you don't know anything about her. She's not particularly articulate. In this book, she is going to have something for herself. And that was partly my own profession. And it was also beginning to earn me a good living, which it takes a while for that to happen. Through my very first books, I cooked in a restaurant. Because with your very first books, you are not making an adequate living. I mean, people teach or do different things. So she is choosing something, and it has to be something adequate to being 47. You know, it's like when you start to learn the piano when you're older, you know, you can't just play little Mary Had a Little Lamb. So the accordion seemed to me like a rich enough instrument, right, with enough range that you could really go to town on it. I wanted to give her an organ, a harp. I wanted her to have a harp at first, and then I thought, no, that imagery is totally wrong and not very useful to the community.
Doesn't fit in well, and how the accordion fits into the community certainly is brought out in Music for Everyone. And this is when Rosie's grandmother is so sick, and the house is empty, and the big Rose chair is empty because she's upstairs being taken care of by her aunt, and the glass jar isn't getting very full of money. And so Music for Everyone is a story of how Rosie and her friends form the Oak Street Band. And again, not just to earn money, but to celebrate and share with the neighbors. And I love the scene where the 50th anniversary of the Little Neighborhood Grocery is the first occasion where the Oak Street Band gets to perform in public. And such a celebration it was.
Yes. Let's find the picture with the four of them sitting in the chair. I like that picture. I think we have to go back. Yeah.
I think one of the things children love about your books too is the borders on each page with the pictures and the something.
Yes, is that one you like? I like that one a lot too. And it was quite a struggle to get all those four into a chair together. I chose them for their coloring.
The graham cracker, the cracker balanced on the knee.
Now, your books reflect a typical neighborhood in a city, I think. You have what is in the politically correct term called multicultural characters in your books, but I don't see these as consciously chosen. I see them as reflecting the children who probably you see in your neighborhood.
Well, I actually have a little bit of a different take on it. I think this is a totally utopian picture. Unfortunately, though, cities are extremely multicultural, multi-ethnic at any rate, and certainly New York is. There are very few living rooms where those 4 people will sit together in one chair. And it's very conscious that I put them there so that children would see them. In schools where they've managed to escape, the results of real estate arrangements, so that the school really is mainly one thing or the other. In schools that are mixed, you will see children working together and doing things together in a quite unself-conscious way, don't you think? But you don't often see it in activities in neighborhoods, I don't think. Or maybe you have a different experience in your city.
I do, luckily.
You
I
do.
have that experience
That's
in my
wonderful.
own neighborhood, and I stay in the neighborhood that I've been in for now 16 years because of that, and because of the sense of community, all the things you've been talking about. And so, and I know how lucky I am to have that, and for my children to have that. It's in St. Paul.
Because it's not so generalized.
No, I
Well,
don't
it's
think
important,
so.
and obviously, then more and more and more said the baby probably had some thought as you chose the characters.
Oh
in this
yes,
book.
this has a very conscious thought. This is now called More, Said the Baby, with a subtitle. That was always its name from the beginning. But the subtitle, which is on the title page, 3 Love Stories, was added later. And I did this book out of one motivation. This is originally, this is not complex in the way I've been talking about the others. I fell in love. I fell in love with my first grandchild, and I think his name, no, it was already had a second grandchild. This is the second edition. The first edition
added
says
that.
for Hudson. The second one says for Hudson, for William. They all say, and for all our grandchildren, by which I meant all our multicolored grandchildren who are represented by these dots. The third one, I think, says also Rebecca. And then finally, I said to my editor, but there are more. And she said, this can't go on. Put all 5 of them on and we'll stop there. So the latest one has all 5. But originally, the whole story was for Hudson.
Oh.
And the nicknames, the characters in this book are Little Guy, Little Pumpkin, and Little Bird. And originally, those were just the names for little Hudson. You know how parents make over their little ones, and they have all these names of endearment, and as well as some of devilment. I used to be called Mazik, which is little devil in Jewish, as well as Ketzela, which is little pussycat, you know. So they were all for one kid. And then when I went to lay out the book and to do the book, I said, now wait a minute. This book is going out into the world. It's not a family project just. And I would like it to reflect the love that parents and grandparents have for their children, no matter what they look like. So I divided it into 3 stories, and the results were a more interesting book. It wasn't just a choice with a social agenda. It was graphically, it just turned out to be much more fun.
Oh,
to do
it is. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful book, and it shows the love and the silliness and the endearment that parents and grandparents have. Now, in terms of social agenda, we were very excited when the book came out, because this showed a family where the grandmother is white and the grandchild is African American. And this is something that we find in our community. And
Yes.
there are very few books where children can look and find themselves reflected.
Yeah, well, I felt
And it's
the same way.
very important. And again, the giggling and the warmth and the love.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk with the group of MELD's young moms today, how are you going to approach this? What are you going to say?
Oh, I approach it the same way I approach this.
Do you read stories to them?
I assume they've read them. Is that true?
We hope
Yeah.
that they have, but
Yeah.
I think
I'll probably read this. I love
or-
reading this out loud. And
Now, they have received Chair for My Mother, all of the
Okay.
participants through the Penn program. received a copy of that book, so they will have that there.
Well, I might read that, and I think if they know this, are apt to be most connected with this one. I'll talk about this one. But I regard them as people who would like to know the same kinds of things that everybody would like to know. The reason they're in this program is because they want to know, right? They want to read. And I would probably rummage in my own experiences for those that more are of interest, you know, relations to children.
I think it's
to
wonderful
work.
because often as we work with parents for whom reading has not been an important part of their life, and it kind of represents the same failure if you haven't done well in school, to see that reading is fun and that children do enjoy books. And that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about working with MELD parents, because when we bring in the rich diversity of books that are available for children at different stages, the parents just go wild. They love it, and there is nothing more fun than to be in a MELD group and having the toddlers all over the floor pulling at the books as fast as we're talking about them, and all the parents absolutely beaming. And for parents who don't often pick up a book and sit down and enjoy it themselves, when they see how their children are attracted to books and story, it changes their whole perspective.
Well, I often share parts of my childhood when I talk to young people. I have children in the sense that my mother, and my father too, but I think particularly my mother, was responsible for many really good experiences in my childhood, because she knew how to take advantage of what was offered in the community, and I noticed that is one of the things that you want to help people with. And she saw that we were going to have a hard time paying for any kind of lessons or extra enrichment for us, and she just made it her business to find out everything we could get to do for free. And she also knew that she was either going to be working or looking for a job, at my father also, and she got an apartment. One of the places we lived all over. I mean, we moved a lot. Most of it was in New York, but we set out in California. But one of the places she settled us was right across the street from this heaven called the Bronx House, and that was a settlement house, a neighborhood house. And we had each a membership card, and then the whole family we joined as a family. And my sister and I spent every afternoon there after school, and we painted and drew and wrote for the little newspaper, and we acted and we played baseball, and we went to camp and we got our teeth fixed and our eyes examined.
It's much like the family resource centers that we're talking about in our communities. And I noticed one of your bios also said you spent a lot of time at your local public library.
I spent a lot of time at the Tremont Public Library, and it was my mother who took my sister and I and walked us what was originally, that was before we lived right near it, an 8-block walk to that library, and I can remember it to this day. Well, my little nose just reaching up to the desk, you know, practically. No, I was probably a little taller than that. And getting to join. And the way you got to join was they had a big ledger with blue lines in it. And they gave you one of those pens that you dip in ink. And you had to be able to write your name. And you had to read. You had to read, you know, I promise to obey the rules of the library.
Oh, don't give people the bad idea about libraries now.
No, it was solemn. It was marvelous.
Such an event ceremony.
It felt like you were being entered into the roster of human beings, you know.
Well,
and I wrote, you know, in my little penmanship that I had learned, Vera Baker. I was so proud.
Well, we're proud too, and you're a model. You're a model to parents and to library users and to the community. Thank you for being with us on All About Kids.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Sure.